pastors' wives out there, whether you're in a traditional church or you're in a church plant where money is very little, you can control a lot of things, both professionally and personally, by just recruiting volunteers for your church and getting on a budget. Very simple. Hard to really discipline yourself to do it. It takes time. It really took us about 6 months to discipline ourselves to live on that budget in a healthy way, but it has benefited us greatly.
That's wonderful. Those are words of wisdom. Being an experienced conference host, what best practices can you share for during the week that you're preparing for the conference, keeping your sanity, as well as recouping after it's over?
Right. Well, we have had conferences for several years now, and now I'm leading our women's ministry at our church, and I feel like that's a huge conference every month. So I know what it is to pull off events, and here's the key. Plan your work, and then work your plan. Plan your work, and then work your plan. I'm a big organizer. As a matter of fact, I think I have the gift of organization, and so I think well in advance about what has to happen for an event to be pulled off. I do not like to be surprised the week of the event with details that should have been covered 2 months ago. And I think you do save yourself a lot of stress when you've thought in advance. There are a lot of people out there that like to fly by the seat of their pants, and that's where they're best. I'm not one of them. I don't like last-minute changes. And so for me, it has been incredibly beneficial to think 6 months out, then 3 months out, then 1 month out, and then down to the weeks. Now, I have to say, the staff at Mountain Lake is impeccable. And I'm very blessed to have an assistant for my husband that just really lifts up our arms. And because the conference runs basically the same every year for church planters, we've got it down to a science. So this year looks drastically different than what it did the first year. So we do have it down to a science. We know what works well for us. But to keep my sanity, it's planning my work and working my plan.
That's good. That's the best thing. Now, with marriage, what are some of the ways that you encourage your husband and keep your marriage healthy?
Well, this lesson also comes straight out of my own life. 2 years into planting Mountain Lake Church, if any pastors' wives are out there today and you're church planters, you're going to totally relate to what I say here. And that is, planting a church is much like starting a new business. You give it your all, and it eats up every bit of your time. As a spiritual a thing as it is, it still requires a lot of work and a lot of elbow grease. And so for the first 2 years of Mountain Lake, we had raised enough funds to pay our salary and the salary of one other man for 2 years. Now, we had that hanging over our head for 2 years, that at the end of those 2 years, we better have a church big enough, bringing in enough tithes and offerings to support us. Mm-hmm. So that was the constant drive. We've got to grow this church, thinking from a business sense.
Sure.
So for those 2 years, the office was in my home, the storage was in my garage, the meetings were at my house. We woke up, worked all day, and slept church planting. My husband and I talked about nothing other than Mountain Lake Church, recruiting volunteers, getting people to show up for service. It ate our lunch. And at the end of 2 years, we were laying in bed one night, and my husband, in the dark, said to me, he was pretty proud of himself, and this is his story that he tells. He had been going really well. And he said, "So, babe, tell me how you think it's going. How do you think Mountain Lake is going?" And I told him, do you want to know the truth? Do you want to know what I really think? And that's when he got quiet. And I had not planned on saying any of this to him, but it just welled up in my heart, and I needed to share it with him. And I said, I'm not real happy. I think the church is doing really well, and I think we're seeing a lot of great success. But as a marriage couple, I think we're ministry partners, not marriage partners. Mm-hmm. And I wish I was married to the man on stage, not the man that comes home. Because the man that comes home is working so hard. And I was too. I was doing payroll at midnight. Mm-hmm. All those crazy things that I know a lot of pastors' wives can relate to. And so we cleared the calendar for the next week. We found someone who had a condo at the beach, and we took off. I had a 2-year-old little girl, and so she went with us. And if you've got a 2-year-old little girl, they can stay occupied doing other things while mom and dad have some serious conversations. And so we did, and we learned right then that it would profit us nothing if we grew a great church but lost each other. And so we learned to draw some lines between marriage and ministry. We learned to set some boundaries, and we were very specific about them. We learned work cuts off at 5 or 6, whatever time that looks like for you guys. For us, Sean is off work at 5, generally home by about 6 o'clock. He likes to work out after he finishes up at the church, and so he usually makes it home about 6. But when he walks in the door, he's not on his cell phone. The laptop doesn't open up anymore, and he handles no more ministry things at night. When he walks in the door of my house, he is husband and father. He's no longer pastor. And we learn to treasure family time, husband and wife time, and not get it confused with the fact that we wear these ministry hats. We learn to draw those lines. We created a family night. Now, we don't get crazy with it. I have a lot of friends who have family nights, and they have their full-on devotions and crafts, and I can't do all that. I'm not that crafty type. But we do have, our family nights that we work around. No meetings ever fall on those family nights. We schedule nothing else, and our kids treasure it. And they know that just like we would never miss a Sunday morning worship service, we will never miss family night. They know that is important. We don't want to have kids that one day grow up and are burned out on Christ, burned out on the church because mom and dad did not know how to draw the line between family and ministry. And so we do that. We also have learned to create some outside interests for ourselves. Something else to talk about besides ministry. I don't know if you're like this, but we have been guilty of laying down in bed at night and talking about staffing issues or the next series coming up or what we're going to do with the church next, instead of the kind of pillow talk we're supposed to be having.
Right.
So we learned to stop all of that. So we created some outside interest for ourselves. We remembered that there were things that we liked to do together before ministry came along. We just forgot what they were. So we take walks now. We go to walk around the neighborhood after dinner. We like to discover new restaurants. All these little things that go on that happen in normal people's lives that sometimes when you're starting a new business, when you're starting a new church, when you get so wrapped up in all the details of ministry, we forget that he's the guy you fell in love with. And we need to spend time with him. I'm the girl he fell in love with. Am I still that girl? Right. And so we learn to treasure that. I choose to publicly praise my husband and let people know what I think of him. We stand together at church so people see us as a partnership.
I love that.
And after every worship service, I slip out in that closing prayer and I meet my husband backstage. And as he's taking off his mic, he's looking at me and I'm telling him, you did a good job. You did exactly what God called you to do. You're great at what you do. You're a great leader, but you're a great speaker. And I just build him up. And so a lot of those things come out of us doing it wrong for 2 years and learning the lesson the hard way and saving ourselves before we had a major catastrophe in our marriage.
I think that's wonderful. And what you just said, I really believe that'll save a lot of marriages because so many times people get caught up in being ministry partners, like you said. And really affirming our husbands, we almost forget to do that at times, and we have to we have to do it consistently until it literally becomes a habit, and it's just overflowing from our heart.
That's right.